right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka SomeGadgetGuy, the SGG of this horribly named podcast series, but the QA is the important part. Question and answer, because we want this to be an interactive conversation. We want to follow up on the top news stories of the last week. Maybe some breaking news just happened with a new foldable phone that we're going to be talking about later in the show. We want to sort out our feelings, our feels, as these stories evolve and change over time, not just getting hooked onto the outrage headlines and then moving on and not really keeping track of where these things go. I'm a little flustered in the second right now because my Panasonic G85, which I normally use as my live streaming solution, started wigging out just like seconds after pushing go on this podcast. So I don't know if there's something wrong with the camera or if there's something up with the touchscreen or what's going on with it, but I had to scramble like in my little intro. Normally I'd be in the comments and I'd be like, hey guys, what's going on? I'm some gadget guy. We should chat in the text while we wait for people to show up. No, I was like scrambling to disassemble my rig here and put up my G9, and we're going to see how the G9 does. I've never used the G9 for a full 2-hour broadcast, so I have no idea what the show's gonna look like. It's basically every podcast we're doing it live and something borks, and we don't know what the final outcome's gonna be. So I hope everyone had a great week, had a great weekend. No major holiday sort of plug, or I hope you spent time with your family or anything like that. Just kind of a normal, straight up week, kind of trying to figure out what the new normal for life is gonna look like. Nick Fell, this is what the Xperia Pro is for. The Xperia Pro wouldn't have helped. Again, this is like my camera wigging out. So the feed from this camera to the Xperia Pro still would have been wigging out. So if I wanted to run this stream off of a phone camera, I mean, yeah, I've got an Xperia One right here. This would work just fine. No, this is now, and again, I don't want to have to pay to fix my G85. I'm so conflicted. I'm looking at like whether or not I should switch to a Sony Alpha, and this is exactly the right time for Panasonic to encourage maybe changing formats. Like if I'm gonna have to fix or buy another camera, maybe I should just buy a Sony camera. So anyway, yes, I hope everyone had a lovely week, had a lovely weekend, that you got some time off. It took some time to unplug, maybe stop staring at so many glowing rectangles all around you, so many monitors. I dived right in on a phone review. My buddy TK, kind enough to loan me his Galaxy S21. So there's going to be some content coming out on the Galaxy S21 soon. Early impressions are not super positive, but I don't think anyone's going to be super surprised by me saying that. And then I've got just tons of lifestyle tech that we need to chew through. I got a new router, which I talked about on Best of Our Week, so I've got a script written for that. A new treadmill from Mobvoi, got a script written for that. I am already forgetting things that I've... an audio broadcasting TV using a puck to send Bluetooth audio out from your TV. That's by way of Me Audio. So again, I am up to my eyeballs in videos to put out. So yes, it's going to be a very busy week. And I'm going to try not to do a video every day, but we might end up with something every day. Oh, and I also have a new project for reviews.org that hopefully will be out, if not this week, but maybe early next week. So lots of stuff. Definitely one of the things that was kind of a breaking news topic, but not necessarily, in the main sort of tech conversation that we're playing with. It broke this morning that apparently Daft Punk is going to be splitting up, and I know a lot of us are in this chat a lot of us are kind of saddened to hear. A collaboration that has run for so long, one of the most influential electronica acts of all time. Um, the most sort of exciting and redeeming aspect of Tron Legacy. It's basically a Daft Punk music video. It's sad when we see those transitions happen, and you kind of hope that just the members of this group have been, sort of have fulfilled what it is that they hope to accomplish, and that they're able to take their expertise, take their talents, and move them into new projects. I mean, that's always the hope, is that we see out of this duo parting ways, is that we see new a refreshed approach to experimentation, to collaboration, and some exciting new stuff on the horizon. So sad, but these are incredible artists, and I have every hope and every expectation that we'll continue to see the expression of their musical talent. Tech Potato! Hey, how's it going, buddy? Get on a plane to Barcelona. Time for Mobile World Congress. We need to sync up again. Get some Iberian jamon. Yeah, I'm not gonna go to Barcelona, but Doc, we are long overdue some drunken tech rambling at some kind of trade show. So thanks so much for dropping by, and I definitely want to. We need to hook up again soon. So, why don't we jump into some housekeeping, because I'm always super long-winded with the housekeepings. One of the housekeepings is going to be a topic for us to chat out at the end of this video, but it's going to be referenced probably a couple times as we go through, especially as we make it through the subreddit plug, because I did real good on the subreddit this week, probably to the chagrin of some of the guys in the chat. What are we? 9:08 in the AM. Where's my... There we go. So, a major video, something I was really excited to put out, Periodic Audio Rhodium, Revenge of the USB DAC. I got super burnt out trying to review all of these tiny little USB adapter DAC things. As phones started getting rid of headphone jacks, we saw an explosion of these types of products. Most of them not great. And, I would follow up on things like the little Microsoft Surface adapter. Not good. Really not good. I mean, it's only $10 and it's not worth that. So I stopped. I've become a really big fan of some of the external portable DACs, some of the Bluetooth and wireless adapters and solutions, the FIO BTR5. I mean, just anytime you ask me about audio, I can't help but say something nice about that FIO, because it is a phenomenal Swiss Army knife. But it's also like $150, well, depending on where you shop it. So, Periodic Audio is a geeky, nerdcore little boutique audio brand. They make these great little bullet earbuds. They're all full of these wacky and exotic materials for the diaphragms, and they've put out... it's technically retailing at $99 for the full MSRP, but it's $50 for a full 32-bit DAC. When you actually measure the performance, it's in that placebo range of audio reproduction that dogs might not be able to hear. But if you're buying high quality audio files, or if you're just wanting to take your compressed music and give it a nice shot in the arm, great signal to noise ratio, a decent amp, can power some decent cans. And right now it's currently selling for around $50. So it's definitely a sweetheart video that I know won't get a ton of traction because people aren't really searching for periodic audio like, major brands. But again, if we're going to lose good headphone jacks, it's nice to have a couple options where we can supply better audio. Then another fun one, TK and I spent some time reviewing the new Toughbooks. This is the Toughbook 33. This is a detachable slate PC built in Hulk Buster armor. Had a lot of fun with this one. And it's obviously not consumer focused. Like, this is an enterprise, construction grade, first responders, military designed laptop. So again, I just think it's kind of funny. Like, Panasonic seems to like sending me this stuff. And like, obviously my channel has more of a consumer focus. but like, it's tough to review something from a consumer mindset when it's obviously not built for consumers. So a part of my video is definitely a bit more of that conversation. What are some of the things that we could take from a product like this, and then also see if we couldn't deliver a more consumer flavored version of it. We're talking about a Slate PC that with options will easily crest north of $4,000. So this isn't the same type of price to performance that you'd see in like a gaming laptop. In fact, a gaming laptop at half the price is probably going to be a lot more powerful in terms of CPU and GPU. But things like hot swappable batteries, reinforced bezels, and a more rugged construction, the port covers. I mean, just so many nice little touches that I look at my daughter using our Pixelbook, and I kind of think like, it'd be nice if the computer we're letting a 5-year-old use was more drop and spill resistant. I got to look into some other options for her. And Tech Potato, those sorts of product categories, they're always after reviews. You could accidentally leave it outside while camping, chuck it out of a moving vehicle. Yeah, it's tough coverage. It's really difficult. I adore rugged gadgets. It's still, I mean, maybe my single greatest betrayal from Samsung was dumping the NX camera line. The second biggest betrayal from Samsung was discontinuing the Active. There were so many of my friends and family that started picking up Samsung Actives just because, like, they'd have, they'd let their kids use their phone. It'd get covered in gunk. You could just run it under a sink before all phones were sort of implicitly water resistant. It's such a good lifestyle consideration for so many people out there. My daughter does not need a Toughbook, but I'd like some of that stuff on a Chromebook. And kind of continuing with just like an alternative conversation about what's going on. My Panasonic is giving me issues. I'm having to use my nicer G9 as my streaming solution here. I recently spent some time with the Sony a7S III. I really want to get that camera, but I don't want to have to sell off all of my Panasonic gear to maybe afford the a7S III body. But it got me feeling nostalgic, so I went back and I dug out my Canon 7D. I fired it up after 10 years of owning this camera just to see what it was like. Going back and playing with just a monster APS-C DSLR, and it really is. It was a great homecoming. There's some things that are really funky about going back to older hardware, but the 7D is such a tank of a camera. The original batteries, 11-year-old original batteries, still powering me through a day of shooting. I mean, like, think about taking like an 11-year-old phone and trying to run that battery. I mean, I've got a bookshelf full of old phones there that I'm very concerned are now going to start becoming fire hazards. But here's this Canon DSLR battery that's just raring to go. Shutter, raring to go. Autofocus, not great. Modern autofocus is definitely preferable to the 19-point autofocus on the 7D, but it was great coming back to it too, though, because we talk about content creation and the character of a photo, and we mostly mean the lens, right? This thing right in front, the glass, that's where the character comes from. But older digital sensors contribute to the look and feel of a photo in very interesting ways. And I was so familiar with the 7D that coming back to shoot on it, it's like I instantly fell into that pattern of, this is what the camera's limitations are. This is how I get around, or how I push the limits of what this camera can do. And it definitely sparked kind of that flavor again. Like, I really need to be taking my cameras out of the gadget lab more often. Looking at like photos of my grandfather who recently passed, and going to events when we could go to events. I've got a whole bunch of red carpet stuff that just looks phenomenal, all shot on the 7D. Yeah, like I know I really push the phone content creator narrative, but the right tool for the right job still has a place in this conversation too. DTNL, 11 years ago, Juan, my dude, I was barely even born then. Ooh, Tech Potato. I'll happily throw a plug out for this. He says, I just recorded a video about next generation lens technologies using nanosilicon structures. It should be out Wednesday. I'll be very interested in seeing your take on this because we talked about that. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? That there's that company that's coming out with these. They're going to be focused on smartphones, but I definitely see application in other industries as well, especially in medical. I think this could be really interesting. But if this starts to also impact traditional mirrorless and DSLR style lenses, this could be really compelling. But yeah, using nano light bending apparatuses to minimize the amount of depth or structure that we need to create a camera lens. So I will definitely be catching that video from Tech Potato. So let's get this up here. Real quick, just to wrap up housekeeping, of course, TK and I, where did I put it? There it is. TK and I did another episode last Thursday of Best of Our Week, talking about the Android 12 developer preview. TK shared a lot of his thoughts using the Xiaomi Mi 11. And then, of course, we both nerded out hardcore on the Panasonic Toughbook 33. And then lastly, for housekeeping, an article. I wrote an editorial that kind of blew up a little bit. If Sony should stop making phones, at least tell us why. I watched a video from the channel This Is, hosted by Austin Evans. I don't know how to say Ken's last name. Is it Ken? I don't know. Ken something. I did not do my research. But yeah, so they put together this 15-minute hot take on the Xperia 5 Mark II. And I felt it was not a good representation of what tech reviewers can bring to a conversation about something like a smartphone. So we're going to save that for the end of this podcast. But yes, if you stir up a little drama on the internet, it tends to get some attention. And a lot of people came kind of running out of the woodwork to encourage me to make a follow-up video. We're going to talk about it here on the podcast, but I'm not super thrilled with the idea of turning my channel into some kind of tech drama channel. I don't want to be the Keemstar of technology. I'd really just like to focus on fun tech. But part of the conversation we need to have in our community is how manipulated the media landscape is. And we should be calling out some trends that we might find concerning when we talk about these gadgets and gizmos that we're all fans of. So we'll cover that at the end of this podcast after we get through the gadget block, because I have a little bit more that I want to say now that we're through kind of the weekend run of this editorial going live. So all of the stories we're going to be talking about, all of the housekeeping, all of the news, all of the articles, you'll be able to find that on the show notes on SomeGadgetGuy.com, all those links. And we should probably jump into the into the news block and see where we go from there. Matt, Juan, drama. No, I don't believe you. Zalbotnik, did someone reach out to you from the tech YouTuber community because some of the bigger YouTubers responded in the thread? I don't know what you're referencing. No one really hit me up. I had several friends in my DMs slide into my DMs with medium to larger size channels who were very aggressively interested in me doing the editorial as a video. And if I hadn't been absolutely swamped this weekend, I might have done it. But I have a lot going on. I have a lot of reviews and other tech videos that I would like to make. So I didn't really follow it up there. I know the article got a little traction on the Sony Xperia subreddit. It did well on glowing rectangles, but I didn't see a ton of outside commentary from there. I mean, again, if you're talking like our Android, then I think as many people who would maybe nod along with my editorial probably don't like me. So I wasn't expecting it to really perform there. Tech potato. Juan, what about tech media that both A, say that mining is killing gaming, but also B, how to mine the bestest? Well, NVIDIA will solve that problem for us just by gimping our products, right? You'll just pay the same for a product that does less. Problem solved. I'm actually trying. Sorry, before we get into the news blog, where are we? 9:22. Okay, I only spent like 14 minutes on housekeeping. That's good for me. Before we get in there, I'm actually trying to reassess some of my commentary. I built a little Nook, and in my Nook, I popped in an NVIDIA GTX 1660 Super. I was a little disappointed because at the time I kind of wanted to go 2060, but I just couldn't get my hands on one at a reasonable price. And I was like, okay, I'll do the 1660. And it's proven to be so solid for 1080p gaming. It's hooked up to one of our TVs. It's our TV computer. I know that sounds so ridiculous and silly and like, again, I'm going to complain about this. I couldn't be more elitist if I tried. I've got a Core i9 Nook with a 1660 Super, and I went down a Reddit deep dive in some of the PC building subreddits. And it's weird to get emotional about things like graphics cards, but reading through stories of what people are trying to do to get the right parts and components for their next PC build and how upset they are, and how it doesn't seem that there's any mechanism for course correcting on some terrible business practices where scalpers can get in the way. Our lawmakers are only just starting to examine online digital scalpers for other industry, like for like I forget, we did a story a couple weeks back, maybe more than a month back now, but that like, oh, if your business only exists to get in between another retailer and consumers, that there's going to start being some kind of wrist slapping regulatory examination of those types of policies. We have some major issues that we need to sort out for stuff like this. If it's toilet paper at the top of a pandemic, or if it's graphics cards in an age of work and school from home, that's a big problem. But at the same time, I was saying there, like, oh, my dopey 1660 Super. I gotta shut up. What I paid for my 1660 Super, if you're shopping a new one, it's now 80% more than what I originally bought that card at. So I could get over myself. I could STFU. I need to re-examine. It kind of feels like a boomer talking about, well, I just used to work a part-time job and I paid for college all on my own. And here I am, like, oh, my 1660 Super, I guess. Now this card rocks and I need to shut up. So, boing bite. I'm trading toilet paper for a 3080. And Tech Potato, this absolutely nails it. Professional miner offers to buy 500 cards from a distributor at once, buying all their stock in one go, making shipping simple. Of course they'll do it. And I don't know how to course correct for our society, that being the strategy or the solution. So it sucks all the joy out of our hobby, out of our industry when that kind of stuff happens. All right, let's get into some news, because I don't want to spend a ton of time on news, and we got to start off with a little politics. Something to keep your eye on. I'm not very confident that this has legs. I feel like this will probably crash and burn, but it's a trend that's I would say it's a trend that's kind of highlighted GOP technology policy since I've been paying attention in the late 90s. Excuse me, I had a water burp there. It was kind of gross. And Ozzy Beach Bum. Hi, Juan. How are you? Hi, Ozzy. Thanks for joining, man. My Australian buddy. All right. House Republicans propose nationwide ban on municipal broadband networks. This is written up by John Brodkin. Absolutely love his work over at Ars Technica. House Republicans have unveiled their plan for boosting broadband connectivity and competition. And one of the key planks is prohibiting states and cities from building their own networks. The proposal to ban new public networks was included in the Boosting Broadband Connectivity Agenda announced Tuesday by Reps Kathy McMorris Rogers out of Washington and Bob Latta out of Ohio. The top Republicans on the House Commerce Committee and Subcommittee for Communications and Technology, respectively. They're calling it the Connect Act for communities over-regulating networks need economic competition today. Oh, that is a terrible acronym. I'm going to repeat that because it bears repeating. The Connect Act stands for communities over-regulating networks need economic competition today. So this is an ongoing trend where the name of a bill kind of means the opposite of what the bill will do. There are numerous states in the United States that bar competition, that prevent competition either from private ISPs or from a community wanting to build their own flavor of broadband. At the same time, while most of these areas become de facto monopolies, there's no incentive for an ISP to improve speeds, to improve coverage, to roll out broadband to areas that are less profitable. One of the major challenges when we're rolling out broadband often comes from whether or not that community is profitable. We can look at here in North Hollywood, there was that case of the 80-year-old man. I can't remember. Is it Jeffrey Epstein? No, not Jeff. What was his first name? His last name is Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein is someone totally different. Oh, man. He was the gentleman who spent $10,000 on an ad in the Wall Street Journal just to shame AT&T DSL, and they wired him up with fiber. He lived, I think, 3 blocks away from another community that had fiber, but AT&T, it's just too expensive to extend fiber those 3 blocks to these other communities. So he gets fiber, but none of his neighbors are going to benefit from his $10,000 stunt. And of course, now all the headlines have moved on. They're like, oh, AT&T hooked him up because he has so much pluck. No, it didn't really fix anything. So that fiber rollout wasn't a rollout. It was literally just like, we're going to string this one cable right to this dude's home. This Connect Act will basically dismantle any protections or any state initiatives where a city or a state might look at rolling their own fiber to improve competition. The only time networks get better is when there is a direct, hard-hitting competitor. If it's Google Fiber, if it's Charter, if it's any of these other fiber carriers, we immediately see Comcast, AT&T, Spectrum, or what was Time Warner. They immediately launch price initiatives, better modems, better upload and download speeds. It's the only thing that improves the situation. But if you can't encourage a private corporation to go in there and compete, the only other option you have is to roll your own as a municipal project. And we can look at how successful that has been in states like Tennessee and Chattanooga. Right now in Chattanooga, I think you would spend less on 10 gig fiber than what I'm paying for 400 meg down, 20 meg up. Where right now my stream constantly dips into the orange on OBS. But I've got that real fast internet. I got the speedy broadband. So, yes, the Connect Act, I'm not for it. If a group of people, if a community of people, if we believe in states' rights, say we're underserved by these corporations, We would like to put our own tax dollars into some local infrastructure. Who is the federal government to say, no, you can't? I it's a weird world that we're living in. But if you believe in states' rights, you gotta believe in states' rights. And if a community of people want to enact this, then it should be up to their purview, their local government and their finances. I've yet to see any solid evidence that giving ISPs more and more tax dollars has really course corrected for better broadband distribution. And especially after Ajit Pai being at the head of the FCC, we definitely don't have any better data on broadband initiatives. This is the reason why these types of stories are so close, so near and dear, so motivating for me to talk about. It was this kind of story a long time ago that got me critically interested in politics. It was 2000 no 2000 no 2005. 2005, John McCain co-sponsored a bill called the Broadband Consumer Choice Act. And the main crux of the Broadband Consumer Choice Act would have eliminated all competition for a major ISP in every region. So it really should have been called the Broadband Elimination of Choice Act. But I got kind of excited. At the time, I was sort of still a little political neophyte. And I'm like, oh, John McCain sponsored a broadband bill. Oh, that could be really cool, cross-partisan, and building. And then I started reading through it, and it was basically, how can we eliminate any choice, any competition from a region? And it motivated me to write my House member at the time, Henry Waxman. And I actually got into a conversation with some of Waxman's aides. I actually still have an email. It's like saved. I'm sure it's just like some copy paste form letter, but Henry Waxman actually signed off on it. Oh, thank you so much for contributing your voice to the political dialogue. Ever since then, that's why I've been so interested, so involved in these kinds of stories. And anytime that those of us in our community have better data, we should be contributing to the conversation. We shouldn't be sitting on the sidelines sneering at other people who don't know as much as us. We are some of the only people that can counterbalance some of the other influencers of politics that often just speak with money. So, the Connect Act. Keep it on your radar. It's going up in the House, so it's very unlikely that the GOP is going to find much traction. But for some reason, with the rollouts of a vaccine for a global pandemic and Texas freezing and energy policy needing to be examined and green power needing to be fortified and consumer health and healthcare and all of these other things that are critical challenges facing our country right now, the GOP is really worried about a community or a municipality building their own broadband when they're underserved. That's what they're focused on right now. I feel they've missed the mark. But that's just me. Moving right along. Let me get this out of the way here. If we needed any better confirmation, when I say, hey, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this story, we don't need to. We've been talking about this for a while. This is just another follow-up that gives us better data confirming what we kind of already knew, is that Facebook lies. Facebook is all fake. This is coming by way of Natasha Daly. It's from Business Insider, but I caught it on Yahoo News. Unsealed court document claims Facebook knew for years that a metric was inflated and ignored an employee warning to avoid a revenue hit. A judge unredacted parts of a Facebook lawsuit that claims executives knew an ad metric was inflated. Executives ignored employees' requests to fix it to avoid a significant sales hit. And potential reach, the metric under question shows advertisers a possible audience size. Facebook's executives knew for years its potential reach advertising metric was inflated and overruled an employee warning to adjust it to avoid a revenue hit. It's all fake. It's all fake. I exist on platforms on social media. Ad revenue and affiliate deals and sponsorships. These are things that help contribute to the family finances. This money, how we go about verifying viewership and retention and advertisers, how YouTube has been screwing with my ad blocks on my videos, giving me like the worst possible kinds of representations for advertising and watch through. This stuff is important. You want to have some sense that you're on stable ground and that these numbers are based in something real. Facebook is all fake. It's a platform hosting millions of bots of fake accounts. It's all gamed metrics for their own benefit. They rely on specious data to sell to other advertisers. They get in between you and your community so that you have to pay them just to reach the people that have subscribed to your content. It's all fake. And getting people off of Facebook is now becoming... I used to kind of just sit back like, I don't use Facebook for anything. I just kind of auto-publish, and I still have my account, blah, 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 blah. No, I feel like a broader part of this commentary is going to be like actively finding solutions to Facebook to encourage a bigger migration. Like other news, like it was just another article that popped up today. It was WhatsApp. If you don't agree to their new policies on WhatsApp, they're just going to shut down your messaging. Leave. Go anywhere else. There are solutions. You can do anything else. I know. No. Text messages, they can still be expensive in other parts of the world. There are other services that can fulfill. There's nothing special about any of the platforms that Facebook now operates. They're all in completely replicatable business models on other services. So Facebook is fake. And this is also why we need to get smarter about digital regulations in the 21st century. From Heiki, heck, go back to email. Something to keep our eyes on, because this is a sort of a follow-up to a story that broke a little while ago. Dan Gooden, again, I'm just kind of plugging Ars Technica like crazy this week. 30,000 Macs found with malware, security pros stumped. This one's a little creepy. So this is called Silver Sparrow. It's a Mac OS malware that can be natively run, can be natively run on M1 chip Mac, like the Mac Minis and the MacBooks. From what we've been able to find in this package, we're not entirely sure what Silver Sparrow is gonna do. It's this little nugget that seems to report back to a main server. It can update code. It can get further instructions. It's got kind of a simple hello world sort of instruction set at present, but that seems to be something that can change. And 30,000 Macs have been found with this malware just sort of sitting quietly waiting for further instructions. So security researchers are definitely keeping an eye on this. But this comes shortly after the very first M1 native malware. Jim Salter wrote it up at Ars Technica too, where this was all about sort of hijacking your search results for adware. So this malware would kind of alter your browsing behavior so that different ads would be served and different search results would show up. So some nasty stuff in this first one. The second one, Silver Sparrow, just really creepy. So we should be kind of keeping our eye on what's going on there. But then it's also just whenever a story like this comes up, I think it's valuable as an educational resource, as an educational reference, that the common idea, the truism, Macs don't get viruses. Like we used to have those those commercials back in the day. That's technically correct. This isn't a virus in maybe the same kind of traditional definition, but that doesn't stop any other number of exploits, malware, just unseemly behavior on the internet, and that even with some good protection software, your behavior matters as much or more than having a good software shield to protect you against ne'er-do-wells on the internet. So Macs are susceptible to bad things happening too. And we need to be able to keep our eye on that, and then also make sure that our family and friends know what the deal is. And holy cow, Alt Dad Tech just dropped a bunch of subs. Thank you so much, Alt Dad Tech. Aw, love you, Juan. I love you too, man. So Kosher Peaches, Zal Botnick, Rosted, Ronio, Nick Fell, Thexy Pat, Turbo Graphics, Meshar, Mbuku, Arthur Lee, Alt Dad, hooking them all up with subs. And I thank you so much for supporting production on this podcast and on these live streams. I greatly appreciate it. That was super rad of you. And I am terrible at the Twitch, or else I'd have like some kind of, confetti. We worked with TK's graphic designer for the title, sort of the logo and the title, the intro splash. I think I need to hit him up and just say, hey, like, I need just a few assets because I'm real bad at this. It took me it took me 3 months to make an emoji just for my live streams. So yeah, I suck at this bad. But in words, I will express the thank you. And TK, he did do very good work. But for Alt Dad, I will express in language the thank you for supporting this podcast. Sorry, Kyoto Urasanti. That's fake news. Macs don't get viruses. I have family members that still say things like that from like the Mac versus PC days. Their perception of the computing landscape has not changed since Windows 98, Windows 2000, that era. I need the best protection. Yeah, but didn't your Mac go down with the Mac Defender bug? Yeah, but that wasn't a virus. You're like, okay, cool. All right, well, that's going to wrap us up for news. Stories to keep our eyes on. The politics of our broadband landscape, we absolutely need to keep an eye on that as we look towards the 21st century economy. Malware, security threats, exploits. I would also like to throw a shout out to Snubs, Shannon Morse. Her content and commentary on that kind of security stuff is phenomenal, and I learn a lot from her. We should probably take a second here. Oh, Dave Burns. My dad has so much malware in Chrome because of download buttons on reputable software websites. Oh, that's so sad. My grandfather, before he passed, he totally resembled that, someone sent me an email with a file in it. I shall click on this file. And if anything said click here in a web browser, he would. And it was a constant arms race whenever I would go down to visit, of like scrubbing out all of the toolbars on his old like gateway PC. And even at one point I had like remote login software, and my step grandmother like freaked out because she got this banner ad. People are spying on your PC. She's like, you've got to get rid of this software. I didn't get these banners telling me that people were spying on my machine until after you installed that spying software. So I did. and after I did, it was like maybe 2 weeks before the machine was completely unusable. And like, it's going to take me a while. I can't just jet down to Orange County to run malware software every single time you tank your machine. But I have to believe that they were falling for scams left and right. It just made me so sad. Again, This man was like one of the smartest and most capable mechanical engineers in our family, and fell for every single online ploy that you could send his way. We have to be those guardians for our family and friends, and it is such a thankless task. We're never going to get the kudos we deserve on that. Paul and Heike, click all the things. All right. Every podcast has a subreddit. My podcast is no exception. My subreddit is designed to help the spread of content that techies feel deserves more attention. I complain a lot about YouTube and algorithms, so I made a subreddit called Glowing Rectangles. You go to reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. We actually got a nice little surge after getting mentioned on the Android Central podcast. Anyone who's there from Android Central, thanks so much for dropping by. Daniel Bader is one of my favorite people on the planet, so if anyone's cool with Daniel Bader, I think they'll be a good fit for Glowing Rectangles. It is very uncommon for me to win the weekly top stories, the weekly top upvoted submissions on Glowing Rectangles, but I have been on fire these last couple weeks. This week, I crushed it. This is, I think, my very first ever clean sweep on our Glowing Rectangles. The number one story, if Sony should stop making phones, at least tell us why. My critique of Austin Evans' review of the Xperia 5 Mark II. The number two submission, a tweet that I shared comparing some of Austin Evans' photography in his claims about the Xperia 5 being a little suspect. And the number three, my review of the periodic audio Rhodium USB DAC. I love this little DAC. It's such a great little option to give your audio a shot in the arm. 1, 2, and 3. This is also why I need a graphics designer to give me like better assets, because that was terrible. Like pew 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 pew. So let me just take a victory stretch here. Paco Stin also told me I needed to check my posture, so I'm going to do that. And Matt Tyler saying it was deserved. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was really working this last week, but this also brings up those that are contributing, those that are sharing, bringing other people to the Glowing Rectangles community, and helping to spread sort of this mission of not just like the most SEO algorithmically popular content, but a huge spread of other stories that popped up this last week. The number 4 position, TK, talking about the Toughbooks. The number 5, Chrome OS sales overtake Mac OS from the Friday checkout. This is Tech Alter's secondary channel. This secondary channel is some of the best weekly business commentary in tech. He's only at 53,000 subscribers. That number should definitely be higher. Someone just introducing themselves, saying that they came from the AC podcast. Shannon Morse, 47,000 subscribers. She needs more subscribers than that, but she's bringing up some concerns about Clubhouse, and there are some heavy concerns to focus on when we're talking about security. I don't know why the image didn't take, but Jason over at Painfully Honest Tech, talking about some changes coming up to his channel in a very personal kind of vlog editorial, just about his own personal struggles and his own metrics for success. And then rounding out the top 10, Alt Dad Tech is now up to 82 subscribers. The dude who just dropped a bunch of tier 1 subs, talking about other YouTubers and other reviewers. Can you trust him? Can you trust them? Unbox Therapy and some of these other channels. And then we've got Tech Odyssey, looking at the BlackBerry Key 2 LE in 2021. So there is a very broad community of tech reviewers, of commentators, of examinations of this industry. and from more regions around the world. Like, I always love seeing Gadget Bite show up on this channel because I don't get the same kind of insight into, say, the Indian market when we're talking about technology, and their channel is so slickly produced. So really good content, really good people. We're getting more submissions than ever before. We climbed like 30 subscribers from over this last week, where normally we add like 4 to 8 subscribers in a week. The sharing. We need more upvotes. We need more sharing. We need more people out there bringing folks to this community. And then that also has the secondary effect of helping these other channels find more audience that they might not have found otherwise. Last week was a big week for traffic on Our Glowing Rectangles. It was one of the most trafficked weeks we've ever had on the subreddit. So I can't thank you enough, those of you who are out there spreading the good word, submitting great videos, great articles. It doesn't have to be YouTube content. It can be any type of editorial, or if someone's producing content on another platform, bring them on by. We just want to share stuff that we don't think is getting the attention it deserves. We want to give it that attention it really does deserve. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. I'm going to have a big week. I have a lot of content that I need to put out this week. And I've got some really hard words on the Galaxy S21 to share. So, I think I'm gonna do well. I think I'm gonna represent well. I don't think I'm gonna clean sweep next week, but I think I'm gonna represent well for next week on the subreddit. From Doomer, highlighting a message here. I just read your article on Austin's video, and just wow, it really shows how most of the popular tech content creators are just in it for the money, which is algorithmic topics pushed by YouTube because some consumers want to confirm that they made the right purchase from a carrier store, when I assume they got pushed to either Samsung or Apple. We're gonna talk about that. That's our closing topic for the gadget block. All right. Vincent, wacky thumbnails. I'm toying with changing up some of my thumbnail strategy, but I really hate wacky thumbnails. Okay, who wants to talk about some tech? Yeah. Dave Burns, you didn't like the S21? That's because you're an anti-competition Apple, LG, Sony, OnePlus, Oppo, Motorola, Xiaomi shell. I'm amazed I actually got that out in one try. I thought I was gonna stumble on that. I hate thumbnails so much. All right. Speaking of being an LG shill, there's a new LG announced. Again, sort of focusing on the Indian market. Why I'm becoming more interested in this is after the Nord, what appeals to the Indian market, I think, is going to start having a bit more influence over the European market, and some of that will trickle to the United States. Purpose-built mid-rangers for the Indian market becoming more viable options globally. The Nord N10 was a very surprising phone for me to use as a 5G-enabled handset at $299 here in the United States. That is surprisingly good competition. I know we benefit from having premium phones go on more aggressive sales, but if you don't have the credit to get a zero interest loan on your $1,500 phone, I'm feeling less and less conflicted shopping around this $300 to $400 tier and getting sale. And that's MSRP. We should also expect sales to drop those phone prices, even lower. Where I've gotten comments on my Nord N10 video like, hey, I picked this up for $100. Like a Nord N10 at $100 is a phenomenal buy for a daily driver phone. So LG, they don't want to be left out of the conversation, so they just announced a trio of W series phones, the LG W41. This isn't something I'm going to spend a ton of time on. I believe these are India only. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong there, but I don't believe they're going to be outside of that region, sold outside of that region. And they're not the most exciting devices, but they seem to be purpose-built for a particular kind of consumer at a range of price points. We're looking at LCDs with 720 resolution, 16 megapixel cameras, powered by, what is it? A Helio P. Oh, here it is. The Helio P22, 3 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gig of internal storage. These are not, lighting the world on fire kinds of phones. That Helio P22, I'd have some concerns with. The lowest end MediaTek I've used recently is the P35. That's the one in the Stylo 6. And it's surprisingly capable for things like streaming video. I was streaming the MKV Blu-ray rips off of my NOS, and in years past, that could actually be a bit of a challenge for a low-end phone, or I should say lower-end phone. The P35, totally fine. I mean, it was a good multimedia playback style of performance, but if you really try and tag the Stylo 6 with a ton of like multitasking, yeah, not the phone for that. But the reason why I wanted to bring this W series up, all of the commentary on LG smartphone division, all of the sort of hot takes on what they're going to be doing with ODMs, the close-up shot of the W41 design looks really familiar. What does that look like to folks in the chat? I can't find much on this that strays from the manufacturing design of a phone like the Nord N10. And Aditya Anil saying it's a Nord N100. It looks so much like a Nord. Hole punch in the same place, the Domino camera module, the rear fingerprint sensor. I would wonder, because we had some of those conversations, and it was sort of tacitly pointed to that LG was going to start looking at ODMs to build the phones, and then they just slap a label on it. If there's not some kind of LG relationship or contact with the BBK parts bin where they can service a phone that's already been kind of pre-built and pre-designed for the Indian market. And if that's the case, that could be really interesting. I think that's a smart strategic partnership for a brand like LG, who's kind of struggling with the profitability of their smartphone market. Why reinvent the wheel? It also kind of leans into some of those other conversations like, well, why buy this if there's already a phone that's made for that? And I totally appreciate all that. But you would still have differing software support, differing features, differing, little bits that you can kind of combine, puzzle piece in and out. I think it's interesting. It would be a very interesting strategic partnership between those two brands. So definitely something I want to keep an eye on. But it was one of those things, like I saw the announcement, W series. Okay, cool. We're probably not going to get it here. That looks familiar. Hang on a minute, LG. So I'll be interested to see if, I'm going to try and look up videos. Like, what does a hands-on video for a W41 look like? Rosted, the Nord is a good phone. I played with one the other day. Someone else had a comment in there too. Aditya Anil, one of my closest mates, got a Nord, hoping LG pushes harder in India and retains their top-tier audio performance from a Giver SoC on their cheaper phones. I'll be curious to see. The Nord N10 is a surprisingly capable audio performer. Maybe there's an audio deep dive of the Nord and the TCL 10 5G on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy, shameless plug. But if you care about your ears and you want to know how a $300 phone can handle some tasty tunes, we might have like graphs and charts and performance metrics that you could be interested in. I'm just saying. All right. Huawei's Mate X2 foldable. That got announced. That's a thing. Who's feeling some Huawei foldable? Because you know how I was saying, hey, this LG looks a little familiar. Well, so does. Oh, whoops. So does the Mate X2. So this makes me a little sad. I really liked the outward folding design on the original Mate X, but it kind of, I get why you make this change. With the new super huge camera module, this now looks a lot like a Galaxy Fold. So Huawei kind of following in some Samsung footsteps to make a foldable that folds in like the Galaxy Fold, has an outer display. There are selfie cameras on the outer display, but we lose that really cool trick. The thing I loved about the original Mate X was there was only one camera module. So the screen would fold out, and then you would have a screen. So if you wanted to use the main camera as your selfie camera, that's how you used it. Ever since I started playing with dual display phones like the Nubia, I like that better. A flip up camera module like on the Asus, I like that better. Why waste the material and the space to include an inferior selfie camera when you can take a better photo of yourself from the main camera and have a good screen to compose with? Same thing. We just saw the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra leak, where there was that little ticker display right by the camera so you could compose your shots. Do that instead. Every phone I play with, if I'm taking a picture of myself, I'm not using the selfie camera. I'm shooting rear blind and composing. It's hilarious. You start getting a feel for how different phones compose. The one that's actually one of the easiest is surprisingly the OnePlus 8 Pro. The OnePlus 8 Pro main camera module is large enough that I can see my silhouette reflected in the lens element, and I can get a very quick sort of feel and look for how I'm composing that shot. So it takes just a teeny bit of practice on your phone to get good at composing off that rear camera, or using the ultra wide if you really want to get a sense of the background that's happening behind you. So I missed that. I liked that better on the original Mate X. But again, I don't think you could do that with the camera module being this huge domino and having that periscoping periscoping element. I know a few folks have complained that there's no selfie camera on the inside of the tablet folding screen. I don't think I'm too bothered by that. Yeah, I know. Oh, I'd like to be able to prop up my phone and take video calls. I guess. Cool. But you can prop up your phone using the outer display and take your video calls. And I do stuff like that a lot on my V60. And it works great. It works just fine. So I'm not too sad about having a hole punch or some kind of screen disruption on the inside of the Mate X2 just because Samsung also does that. Doesn't mean that Huawei needs to copy that too. I think that's a bad thing to copy. So, what are we looking at here? Let's see. The outer screen packs 6.45 inches of space with a 2700 by 1160 resolution. That's the outer display. The inner screen is an 8-inch diagonal resolution, 2480 by 2200. That's not bad. It's going to be Android 10 based on EMUI 11 using the Kirin 9000 processor, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and a 4400 milliamp hour battery. Fast charging up to 55 watts, but no wireless charging. And we're going to be coming in, the 512 gigabyte version is going to be just under $3,000. The 256 is going to be around $2,800. So China only. I don't know if I don't know if this is something that we should be keeping on our kind of keeping our attention on. There's been little talk of revisiting or re-examining the sort of political strife between corporations, the United States and China, and this Huawei ban for parts and components. This might prove to be the last run of devices on this Kirin 9000. I think Tech Potato probably has some better insight on that, depending on chip fab, regional relationships, and for distribution. But this is looking like kind of the tail end of Huawei, the decrescendo, I should say, of Huawei smartphone business as we start examining what their policy might be moving forward and how they're already cutting their manufacturing expectations. That was another story that broke last week that we need to kind of keep an eye on their unit sales. It seems like Apple actually sucked up a pretty decent chunk of Huawei's smartphone business. I believe Apple outsold Samsung in the last quarter of 2020 on an upgrade super surge, or whatever it is analysts call when people buy a bunch of a phone. So it's making me anxious and it's making me a little sad. I liked Huawei as a competitor, and I really wished they had been able to get some kind of toehold in the United States. As a consumer electronics provider, I feel like there needed to be some market corrections on how Huawei was very liberal with their use of other companies' IP. But I never did see good evidence to suggest that a consumer division of a Huawei brand was in any way a security threat to the degree that our government classified them as one. And I felt like we needed better evidence to see how the operations of Huawei as a global entity really contributed to those kinds of conversations. Oh, Tech Potato saying at $2,500, not $3,000. Well, I mean, we're kind of splitting the difference. It seems to me that 5G capable folding tablets that turn into fragile phones, with these humongous camera arrays and with either multiple screens or very very complicated mechanisms for manipulating the screen, are going to be cresting up to around that $3,000 price point this year. It seems to be. The rumors for LG's Explorer scrollable, we were kinda in the $2,500 to $2,800 price range, somewhere in there. The Mate X2, when you account for currency, it's looking like it's around a $2,800 phone. And I'll be very surprised if a Z Fold 3 with stylus support, if we're following all the rumors, and all of the camera updates and modules from the Ultras is under $3,000, or I should say significantly under $3,000. I'm assuming Z Fold 3 is going to start cresting somewhere around $2,700. That's my guess. So we'll have to see where this stuff comes in. Oppo is also going to be delivering something in there too, and again, any company that starts making foldable tablets, 5G, multiple camera arrays, if they can do it at closer to the $2,000 price point, I think that's when we'll start seeing some competition cook back up again. Oh, I see what you're saying. Tech Potato says, Aria, I'm just saying Engadget did the cost conversion wrong because the presentation includes Chinese sales tax, which is 17%. All countries except the USA include sales tax in the listed price. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, that makes more sense. And that kind of fits in line with what I was saying before. So yes, I agree. From Kapakash, it's time they lift the ban. It's ridiculous. You can't cripple a company because you don't like the government. Amazon, Google, Apple, and many U.S. companies have ties to the government. What if other countries were to ban them too? Again, that's why I kind of feel like it's fair to say I feel like Huawei deserves some scrutiny and some market correction, some type of regulatory action or disciplinary action. It kind of in the same token, like, we saw sort of a multi-pronged warning and then penalty for ZTE as they had violated some of the Iran technologies ban. And then they didn't follow through on some of the punitive measures from the first, wrist slap that they got. So that took them out of, the United States market to a higher degree. And then they eventually had to kind of work their way back. We're long past that time frame for Huawei. ZTE came back faster. Like you can go and buy a ZTE again. I'm not sure, what it is, what political wrangling, or just maybe if Huawei is a higher profile or a higher tier target. Um, it's interesting. The political discourse impacting what we do with just gadgets on the ground. It's a very tangled relationship. And Tech Potato, even if Huawei got access to TSMC again, they'd have to fight for capacity. TSMC is capacity strained at 7 and 5 nanometers already, so Huawei would end up 1 or 2 gens behind in process compared to Samsung and Apple for a while. Yeah, it's pretty dark. Makes me sad. But again, I also wonder if let's say you did a holding pattern 10 nanometer, you follow like an Intel path. Well, we'll do 14 again. That'll work. If at some point there would be if there would be an opportunity for local chip fabrication to start improving. I can't remember the name of the Chinese company that has been doing chip fab, and they're about, I believe, 2 generations behind. Anyway, Mate X2 announced. I'd still love to play with one. I've been very curious what a Huawei without Google Play services feels like. But again, now it's just sort of existing as sort of a token showpiece of technology. And I'm glad to see, again, an iteration on this idea. But I do miss the original Mate X outward fold. I want to see other form factors and other solutions. And, again, why I'm getting kind of a little anxious to see what a scrollable might look like instead. Because this whole, like, I'm going to fold this so it's twice as thick sandwich of a foldable, it's not really my jam. From Trey916, Huawei and Honor made such great phones. To see them crippled by this idiocracy is so sad. And Tech Potato, TCL has some impressive foldable concepts. Again, seeing some of their work on scrolling, on some of the scrolling designs, makes me wonder if LG didn't tap them for some of the hardware. Because LG has the bendy OLEDs, but the bendy OLED isn't the problem. The frame and the housing is really the challenge in making something consumer durable. And again, if you've got a company like TCL that just shows all of their R&D, they're not being precious with any of it. They're showing like all of their wacky concepts. It makes me wonder if there aren't some other strategic partnerships, especially when we see, like how quickly LG iterated on the hinges for dual display and how wonderful the wing flip is. I have my wing over here. I almost always have my wing within arm's reach. I mean, just to think that LG managed this in a first gen concept, and it's like a perfect Star Trek kind of flick. It's got like an almost perfect resistance, so the screen doesn't whack as you get to the top. And it stays put just well enough in a traditional phone form factor that you can really use it without it like really wiggling. Like you have to kind of try to get it to slide out. This is brilliant engineering. And again, it seems like as soon as you put a hinge on a device, you can easily add what, $600, $1,000 to the price of that device. So yeah, it's pretty nuts. Whew. And Trey916, TCL's given me ZTE vibes from before their little ban like the Axon 7 days. I keep my eye on them for sure. TCL, like again, if I have to like kind of start categorizing their display tech, the juicy, vibrant screens that they're putting into more budget options, the full feature sets like IR blasters and headphone jacks, and then surprisingly, TCL has some of the most aggressively bright performing cameras in really low light environments. The TCL 10 5G got mocked for having this like 2 megapixel low light camera sensor, you can get some stunningly bright video in very dark conditions out of that phone. So little things like that are actually kind of interesting, where I think OnePlus might have taken, sort of the premium night mode, super bright photo win for me in 2020. A cheap TCL shooting super bright 1080p video at night is kind of an interesting perk. Not something you're going to use a ton, not like this is going to make your purchasing decision, but you pick up the phone and you're like, oh, that's actually kind of a unique differentiator, and that's kind of fun to play with. I'm out of the headphone jack water, so now I need to move to some megapixel water, so hold on just one sec. All right, we got a couple stories here just to kind of finish up our gadget block, and then we can talk about lazy reviewing. Let me get this here. For as much shade as I throw Samsung, and as for as critical as I'm going to be of the S21, which if you have questions about the S21, drop some comments because we'll answer your explained S21, the truth of using it. I don't know, whatever clickbaity YouTube headline. When I see a headline like this, it deserves the kind of commentary that I hope will lead a better direction for consumers in general. And that is, of course, the news that broke from Samsung that starting with phones built in 2019, Samsung is committing to 4 years of updates. This is not 4 years of operating system updates. You're not going to get 4 generations of Android. More important than that is 4 years of software support, bug fixes, and security patches. Security updates can be quarterly or monthly, and they can take longer to get to a specific device depending on its locale or carrier. This is coming by way of XDA, by the way. Ivan GSM Arena. Ivan at GSM Arena wrote this up. Over 130 phones have been detailed and will be supported following this announcement, starting with the S10 era. But phones like the Galaxy A10, A20, A50, A70, the Galaxy M series, the M10s and M20s, and Galaxy Tabs like the Tab Active 3, the Tab A8, Tab A7, and the Tab S series. 4 years of software support is absolutely welcome. This is definitely appreciated. I would wonder if a part of this isn't the fact that Project Mainline through Google is going to help streamline some of the security responsibilities by moving more pieces and components over to Google Play Services updates. But regardless, the fact that Samsung is taking the initiative to publicly discuss, and this now sets a target on Samsung. They put a giant target on their software support, their software division. If one of these phones doesn't get that kind of support, we see it trail off like, hey, I've got this A50 and it's stuck on, the security patch from like 2 years ago. What's going on? It's only going to serve as criticism of the brand. It's only going to, be sour grapes for tech commentators or techies in comments. Samsung promised me 4 years and then I only got 2. It's going to be... It's a high watermark for Samsung to live up to now. So the fact that they not only said, yeah, phones in 2019, but only the Galaxy in the Note, only the Galaxy S in the Note. They listed every phone, Z, S, Note, A, M, X cover, and Tab. They actually got to do it now, which is amazing. That's incredible. It's phenomenal. So hopefully we see this spur on more commentary on this topic. As I've started kind of going back and forth between different generations of phones, like I went back to that old Huawei Nova. I've been playing with a couple phones from 2018 and 2019. I'm trying to ramp up to start producing some longer term looks at phones, both last year and the year before, just how they've aged over time. I'm a little less into like, I need to have the latest and greatest. I need to be a part of the 1% of people that are on Android 11. Where I feel we've critically dropped the ball has been on the bug fixes and the security patches. There's no good reason why a phone the hardware that could easily last for 3 to 4 years, maybe even more, you could push some of these devices with a little care and a little maintenance out to 5 years. No reason why they shouldn't have some basic security patching enabled and not have to go jumping through, ROMs and rooting and custom software to get some of that. Like, it should just be a greater expectation right from the original sales and from the manufacturer. And Doomer wasn't one of the A series phones the most sold in 2020. I don't know if most sold, but I know in the first half of 2020, the A50, was it the A51? I think it was the A51, not the A51 5G. I'm pretty sure it was the A51 was the phone that kind of saved Samsung's ass for their financials. It was like A51 and iPhone SE were two of the hardest hitting phones in the first half of 2020. So, this is a trend. When we talk about Samsung as a market leader, this is how you demonstrate leading a market. Not by removing features from your phones and offering up a phone that is a poorer performer than the phone it replaces. You lead the market by setting trends and initiatives that will spur on your competitors to also step up and deliver better service. So this is an example of Samsung as a market leader that I am happy to celebrate on a podcast where I normally just talk trash about Samsung. And Gabaletta, I mean, this is a concern. My wife had some stuff to say about updates on the podcast where she was talking about replacing her LG G7 with the Pixel 4a 5G. Gabaletta says, Android 11 has made my Note 10 Plus slightly twitchier and animations are not as smooth as they were on Android 10. And there's always going to be that concern. We've been burned by software before, and we think it's some kind of conspiracy theory tinfoil hat. And then Apple comes out and says, oh no, our software updates were slowing your phones down. Our bad. Here's a cheaper battery replacement. No, that's real. Again, you feel like you're crazy, but it's real. And Samsung was also tagged in Italy for doing the same thing, I believe around the Galaxy S5 or S6 era of phones, where they were fined by Italian regulators for also putting code into Android updates that seemed to slow devices down. So, Gary the Fireman, you can have my Razer phone too. It's stuck on Android 9. You know what? Long-term catch-up. Long-term revisit. The gaming phone that sold me on gaming phones, Razer Phone 2. I'm gonna pull that bad boy back out. I'm gonna see what it can do with some of my favorite hardcore games and that super fast refresh rate. I'm gonna bench that phone all over again because Razer Phone 2 is a sexy piece of hardware. I did have one other quick story that I wanted to get to. Oh shoot, hold on. I don't have a link for it. This was shared. Obviously, this was published by different outlets, but it was shared directly by who shared it? Dang it. Unprepared. Everyone laugh at Juan. He sucks so bad. Who shared it? Ladies Man 217 on the SomeGadgetGuy Discord shared directly a little video clip of a leak that, again, is going to make Juan critically Twitter-pated over something Samsung might do because Juan desperately wants to stop talking about himself in the third person. I desperately want heads-up displays, augmented reality. I feel like the phone as a brick that occupies all of our senses except for our sense, maybe your sense of smell. It shouldn't occupy your sense of smell. But sort of distracts you from the world around you. I desperately want face computing that enables tech connectivity, but in a more organic and discreet fashion. So this video from Samsung leaked, and they apparently have their design set on some kind of AR headset or heads-up display. It's called the Glasses Lite. So I'm probably gonna get some copyright striking for. Oh, is that really how it's gonna really? Oh, come on. You know what? Give me 1 second here. We're gonna watch this video. Come heck or high water. Um, I'm gonna find a way to add a video source. Okay. Add file. It's in my downloads. And okay. Sorry. Definitely the music now just gave me a copyright strike, so that's less good. So this is the Samsung Glasses Lite, and I'm doing a react to this video. They're very chunky. Super, super chunky. They will not look like regular glasses, but if they can enable just a bit of a goggle feel around your eye, that solves some of the issues that we've got with augmented reality. Now, if you can keep this very smartwatch simple, where again, they're showing like, hey, this video screen's gonna float and I can kind of watch things. There's not a lot in here. I'm gonna pause real quick. There's not a lot in here that's HoloLens style augmented reality. So a lot of their description of this product is more heads up display. HoloLens will map the area around you and paint stuff into what you're experiencing. So like one of my favorite demos is like, hey, I'm watching Netflix and I can take Netflix and stick it on a wall and it can be just like a TV, and the headset knows to keep it docked to that surface. What's going on here in Glasses Lite is not the same. So when you see like, hey, it's making a floating screen and I can just use DeX, like the example that's showing right here, DeX isn't a big draw if you need to power a whole other computer to interface with DeX. DeX is amazing when you've got like a NextDock, right? You don't need a whole separate computer just to use DeX. Well, why don't you just pair a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse to your phone, and then DeX just shows up floating at eye level? And you don't need to plug your phone into a monitor. You don't need to plug your phone into a dock. You don't need to plug your phone in to a whole other computer to use DeX. That suddenly takes the viability of DeX to a significantly higher tier. Your investment is better managed. And so again, where Samsung has a pretty good infrastructure for wearables, for accessories, for smartwatch, if it's Tizen or if it's Google or if it's Android, we don't know what their next smartwatch is going to be. Something like this that interfaces through eye-level displays, that's a pretty good one. I kind of dig that. Let's just kind of wrap up sort of what's going on in this video. Video calls, yeah, I get that. That's really cool. And then also, because these displays would have to have like transparent OLEDs, you can do a sunglasses mode. I mean, imagine the battery draw on making the pixels of your display darker just so that you can have a proper sunglass mode enabled. But again, this doesn't look like true AR. Oh, let me go back just a second there. This doesn't look like what you're interacting with can map what you see. It does look more like next generation heads-up display. So getting the camera feed from a drone and putting that in your field of view so that you can see that data without having to look at some other display, it's more discrete and it's more organic, being able to interact with the world around you and have this information come up at eye level. It's the just the critical excitement where I lost the focals by north. Just having notifications at eye level and some basic interfaces for things like turn-by-turn navigation, walking directions, being able to interact with my notifications in a rich notification method was so much nicer than referencing a smartwatch. So if Samsung can do it, I'll be very excited. I'm gonna be real cranky if it's like locked to Galaxy phones. That will make me very mad. But I mean, it's frustrating because we can't get cool stuff like this in a more boutique method. Like look at a Pebble smartwatch versus, an Apple Watch. Look at a company like Focals by North. These innovations like get spurred on by smaller companies, and then they just get gutted by a juggernaut brand that just steamrollers over them or buys them up just to prevent the competition on a project they might be working on. It's like you probably can't buy Samsung. Even if you're Apple, you're like, can we? No, we probably can't. Tech Potato, install a wireless charger on your scalp under the skin. Gabaletta, just put a solar panel on your head to keep them charged. I would imagine that there would I would hope. The solution for Focals wasn't terrible. The carry case was bulky. It was big. It was a full clamshell plastic hard case, but that had a battery in it. So when I was really using those Focals hard, I don't know, I'd get down to like 60% charge in like a really long stretch of wearing them, and then I'd get back to my car. Really shouldn't use something like that when I'm driving, so I put them in the carry case, and then the battery in the carry case gives them a charge. It's kind of just like true wireless earbuds, where you might not be wearing them every second of every day, so you can take them off, put them in a case, and the case is going to keep topping them off as you need to throughout the day. It becomes a much bigger challenge for those people that do wear glasses, because you are relying on your face wear to properly help you see the world around you all the time. So that might be a bit more of a challenge. But then you also, for the main things that make the heads-up display the most compelling, what Samsung is showing off here are those one-off uses that are going to be the most battery draining. But I'm telling you, like, if you like wearing a smartwatch because of things like notification support, you don't need the screen on all the time, right? It just pops up into your field of view. You can choose to ignore it, and you get on with your day. That kind of stuff is so critical. Those brief, constant interruptions and interactions that we just take for granted using our phones. So that kind of stuff, you should be able to keep a wearable headset running for a really long period of time. And then if you need a short burst of computing, you can fire up Dex, get your work done. That probably took a hit on the headset battery, but then maybe you top it off after that. I mean, like, that kind of mixed usage is very interesting to me. From Trey, seriously, I'd rather them look like a HoloLens, a futuristic visor, than look like an alien's version of glasses. That guy looks like an alien impersonating a hipster. I don't love the design, but I feel like we've got to strike that kind of halfway point. It's like electric cars. When a mainstream automobile manufacturer makes an electric car, they always have to take a car they already make and twist it up to make it kind of look like an alien bug. And I always hate that. Or like, especially like hybrids. I wanted cars that just looked like cars, like a regular car. But you had to give it like weird accents and fins and a dashboard that looked all futuristic, just so you could virtue signal that you were driving an EV or a hybrid. And I kind of feel like heads-up displays are gonna kind of move us through similar territory. The other ones that I'm very interested in seeing, it's not AR or a HUD, but the cinema display, the cinema headset that TCL is going to start selling. Looks like weird futuristic, retro futuristic aviator goggles, right? So each eye has like its own tube that just sucks to your face, and that's going to give you a more immersive movie watching experience. It's not going to look cool. It's going to look retro nerd chic, which looks dorky. But it's like also like I can't see myself when I'm wearing them, so I kind of don't care. What I like about Samsung's design is that, like the TCLs, the shape of that eyepiece looks like it should goggle around your eye pretty well. And if that's the case, then we should have a reasonably decent main viewing area without having to go through some kind of complicated lens eyeball adjustment. Because that was one of the downfalls for focals, was you had to go and get your face measured for a very specific kind of lens that had a reflective element from a projector that would shoot that into the lens piece. If we don't have to do that, these products become significantly more viable, and way more accessible. And it's one of those things, like, I could never really share the focals with other people. Like, I could kind of put them on my brother's head, and his head was sort of similar to mine, but he really wasn't able to use them like I could, let alone, like my wife or my sister or my mom, like, completely different face shape and head depth. And I've got a pretty big melon. So, like, they'd always have to kind of like hold it at a weird angle. Oh yeah, I can kind of see where there's a notification. I guess that's neat. I hope you enjoy them. And then they'd hand them back to me. What Samsung's doing here seems like it should be more immediately usable by other people, just to kind of pick up and try on and give them a test drive. Dave Burns, did you just virtue signal? You're anti-virtue signaling at us? Well, speaking of anti-virtue signaling, let's talk about why we're annoyed by tech reviewers. Does anyone want to jump in on that? Because I feel like I am super cranky about that kind of stuff, like, all the time, pretty much. So we should probably jump in and chat this out. From McCorcoran 3, I tried to get to the LG desktop mode, but I got tripped up in the developer options. If the phone natively supports LG's polish on the desktop mode, you shouldn't have to enable developer options. The phone should, if it's officially supported by LG and you're not just using the Android desktop mode, it should alert you to say, do you want to screen share or do you want to go desktop mode? So what is that? That's G8, V50, V60, Velvet, and Wing. And I'm not sure about other phones beyond those. Those other phones, you need Android 10, and then you need to go digging through the developer options. Tech Potato, tech reviewers are the worst. Yeah, we are. This is true. A couple weeks back, I covered that hilarious and sad Reddit starter pack, just skewering tech reviewers and pointing out some of our absolute worst tropes. Some things that I was definitely guilty of too, and still am, as I'm looking at doing wackier thumbnails that make me want to vomit every time I have to interact with YouTube. So I'm cruising around the internets, and we're seeing kind of a second wave of Xperia and LG reviews. A bunch of really great smaller creators are getting their hands on the LG Wing, starting to see some sort of secondary commentary on what that phone is like to use. And then same thing, the Xperia 5 Mark II took so long to really make it to market that it's now sort of finding a second stride in the commentary. Like, I got early access to it before it was really shipping and selling retail here in the United States. I do not have an Xperia 5 Mark II in-house now to do a follow-up. I'm doing most of my Sony coverage now on the Xperia 1 Mark II. But we're seeing, like, a Unbox Therapy did a video on the Xperia Pro. Marquez did a video on the Xperia Pro. And so there's sort of a fog or a periphery of Sony content that's kind of hitting in a way that it's difficult to kind of keep up with the momentum of a brand when it sort of ebbs and flows. This is a marketing critique in much the same way that I've got issues with LG's messaging. I kind of feel Sony falls into similar traps from time to time. We announce this phone, it might take 2 or 3 months before that phone really ships to consumers. I don't think that's bad, but when the phone ships, you need to make just as much noise as when you originally announced that phone. You can rekindle some of the excitement or the buzz, but just to kind of, it's selling, here's a press release, doesn't get people back. You don't win them back. And a lot of your potential customers might have already purchased new gadgets in the interim between announcing the phone and shipping the phone when they don't know when to expect the phone. So, one of the videos that I recently caught was from a channel called This Is, which is hosted by Evan Austin. And hold on, I'm gonna look up this name. It's bugging me like crazy. Ken, someone please tell me what Ken's name is. Ken Bolito? Is that how you pronounce his last name? For some reason, I thought it was Ken Bolidio, but Ken Bolito. Thank you, Zelk Knight. Bolido. All right. I'm going to go into some screen share here because I'm not pulling the actual video. And I was very reluctant to even write this piece because I don't have a huge following. I am not a major hard-hitting player. Like, I'm a mid-tier channel on YouTube, and my blog doesn't get nearly the traffic that my YouTube videos get. But even then, I was sort of anxious that highlighting what I feel is an obnoxious trend in tech reviewing still serves to highlight the original content that I'm critiquing. So I linked to the video. I feel that's fair, but this is definitely a piece, commentary and critique, taking a look at how they break down the Sony Xperia 5 Mark II and why I think it's kind of hack and why we should not only do better, but demand better of the people that generate tech commentary. It's not about whether or not I agree with their opinions or their preferences. It's how I feel the consistency of a review process is completely gamed for popular products and how they have completely dropped the ball, holding themselves to any kind of standard on a less popular product like the Xperia 5. And so if you want, you can read the article. Like, I do the obnoxious YouTuber thing where a movie review is just regurgitating the plot and then saying what I like or don't like about every plot point, right? That's not a movie review. You're spoiling the ending and betraying the entire journey. That could be a documentary on the movie, but it's not a review. So I did the same thing to their review. I reviewed their review of the Xperia 5 Mark II. And I know we're in trouble when immediately the first thing they critique is the name of the phone. It's less than a minute into the video where they're doing the herky-jerky YouTuber tech reviewer thing. it's an Xperia. I mean, you don't even know what to call it, right? Like, what do you even call this phone? It's the Xperia 1II? Is that how it's like a Final Fantasy title for their video. Oh my gosh. Like, who could even say the name of this phone? When something like that hits in the first minute, I'm almost completely positive that the resulting commentary, the rest of the 14 minutes of this video, will be just as shallow. What's frustrating is later on in the video, they talk about how in their studio, they shoot on Sony cameras. We love our A7S IIIs. So if they're capable of understanding the naming convention of a camera, like the A7S Mark III, 5D Mark IV, whatever generation of camera and product line, then I kind of feel this her laughing at Xperia 5 Mark II is disingenuous. It's bad comedy, right? It's a hack joke that has already been sort of watered down by other YouTubers. When the Xperia 1 Mark II launched, I made a joke about how tech reviewers couldn't say the name. This is just so impossible. And if you go to my Xperia 1 Mark II video, the wallpaper I'm using on my Xperia 1 Mark II is the Iron Man Mark II armor, because saying Mark II is really easy. The Xperia 1 is the phone, and then every generation is a new Mark. Xperia 1 Mark II. But now we're not only well past the launch of the Xperia 5 Mark II, we're into like the next year, right? This is a 2020, a phone that launched at the very end of 2020, actually into retail channels, and now it's 2021 February. I feel like this is done. Like it's an old and tired gag. The resulting commentary is just as shallow. And so I think that's really what spurred me on to write this editorial. I caught this joke in the first minute. I pushed pause on the video just to like, do I really want to watch the rest of this? I don't think I do. And then I kind of forced myself to, under the prediction of, what is it that they're going to tag this phone for? Is this going to be any deeper than just reading the spec sheet? So here's what I predicted. I predicted, well, they just made fun of the phone's name, so they probably haven't used the phone really at all. They're going to make a bunch of claims about daily driver this and premium phone that. They're going to be really upset that it doesn't have 5G. It doesn't have 5G support in the United States. It does have 5G in other regions. And I bet you they say something about the wireless charging. But my prediction was they weren't going to say a lot about what the phone features really are. So not only was I correct, they mostly just complained about the spec sheet, I was sort of incorrect that they didn't really mention any other features on the phone. And that's where I like, okay, not only did I totally call this, they still managed to let my expectations down. They still managed to dive lower than where I was expecting them to comment on this device. And over 15 minutes of video, they let me down on every single talking point and on every single opportunity to show that they have access to cool tech and they can comment on interesting consumer technologies. This is awful, especially coming off of that Reddit starter pack. Like, if we want to be ridiculed more as a community, this is the kind of content that's making us all look bad. So it's a cheap hack play. It's a way to generate a little outrage porn with the wacky thumbnail of Austin telling Sony to stop making phones. And it's a love letter to Samsung and Apple owners. Every opportunity they could take. Well, if there's something on this Sony that's kind of interesting, let me tell you about the Galaxy S21 that I like better. Well, it's just not wacky enough. Let me tell you how I'm going to put my SIM card back in the Z Flip. Well, it's just the cameras aren't good enough for the gooding. If the cameras were gooder, let me tell you about the iPhone that I use as my daily driver. If you can't... So again, this is... I mentioned this in the article. This is a warning sign. If you call something a review, you should be able to talk about the product on its own merits. If you really use a device, it is not hard filling 15, 20 minutes of commentary on just what it was like to use this product. You don't need to spend half of the video talking about Samsungs and Apples if you really use it. Now, how do I know they didn't really use it? Let's cut to some video evidence. When we go down, hold on, I've got to see. There was only, I'm almost positive I showed these. Okay, so Austin Evans talks about how the camera is all manual modes. It's really incomplete. You don't even get like a night mode, okay? How could Sony not give us a night mode? You got to give the computational photography. I know the camera app is just like our Sony A7S IIIs, which are really great cameras, but who's gonna use that? All right. How do I know that Austin didn't really use the camera? Is because the Sony Pro Camera app does have a low light, long exposure, computational night mode. It's just in auto. So here we see Austin is using, I'm pretty sure those are Austin's hands. He's using the X5 II and it's in program mode. So in program mode, the camera assumes you know what you're doing, that you're going to control the brightness of the photo that comes out. But if you put it into auto mode, it immediately will switch to a low light, long exposure processing mode that works really well for scrubbing noise out of a photo and brightening it up. So I've got my office in near blackout conditions. The viewfinder in program mode is almost completely unseeable. Flipping it to auto, I can see this pretty well, and the resulting photo is pretty decent. But we only saw 2 photo samples. Sony is an optics brand. They make cameras. Almost all of the cameras that are found in your phones probably came from Sony. Sony is responsible for the Alpha line of mirrorless and DSLR cameras. They make cinema cameras. They make broadcast cameras. To get through 15 minutes of Sony Xperia commentary and only see 2 photo samples speaks to me you did not really use this product. So Austin's wrong. There is a low light processing mode. No conversation about Sony autofocus, which is spooky Skynet good. Where Samsung autofocus is spooky bad, Sony autofocus is like, well, there's your eyeball. Congratulations. Now I can take a photo. It is scary fast and it's scary accurate. Now I want to show this here real quick. While they're doing the B-roll of showing Austin using this phone, and you can see, like he's taking this terribly composed photo of the Z Fold and the iPhone behind it. What do you think is one of the photos that they actually use as an example? That dopey, terrible desktop photo of a phone, of 2 phones. That's one of the photos, one of the 2 photos that they use to show off the Xperia 5 Mark II. They don't even use this photo of one of their other producers taking a picture of like a toy llama. That they don't show you that photo, because that photo probably came out well. They show you this terribly composed piece of junk that Austin just sort of shot on the fly while shooting some other B-roll of the phone. And here's what I think is really funny. Oh yeah, we shoot our content on these great Sony cameras, these A7S3s that can produce gorgeous 4K video. They upload their videos in 1080p, and then they show us a photo sample where it doesn't even take up the full frame of 1080p. So not only do we not get a good sense of what these photos look like, they shrink the photo down so it takes up less space in the frame. So they're also just really bad at showing what a camera can do. It's just really bad, just all the way around. So yeah, they did not use this phone. They did not use these cameras. They are completely uneducated as to what Sony can bring to the table, what the features, what the functionality, and what the operation of this device really resembles. And it takes me all of 3 photos in this blog post just to kind of correct all of this information. But of course, their video is going to go on and have like 100,000 views, and my blog post is going to have like a couple, maybe 2,000 reads. The other thing that's also super, super annoying. Lots of just specious claims, lots of just empty, like they need to nail the execution. That doesn't mean anything. Well, I guess it has fast charging, but it doesn't have wireless charging. So to be fair, well, they don't mention anything at all about the wonderful power management features, the HS power control, the advanced gaming functionality, like these things that Sony really brings to the table and has innovated, and they're well ahead of the rest of the pack. Like this is stuff that I want on every phone. It's only going to be found on a Sony. And I had to like pause, walk out of the office, and then come back. I don't think I have the clip up here. But at one point, Ken is turning to Austin and he says something along the lines of, well, and you know what? I'm sure this headphone jack sounds really good. You know what's better than guessing about a feature on the phone? Where, again, the 2 of these commentators have said that they've had the Xperia 5 Mark II for over a week, and that Austin has been using it as his daily driver. Instead of just guessing that maybe the headphone jack sounds good, is plugging in some headphones and listening to some music and then detailing what your experiences were using that feature. So they didn't use the phone. Having a headphone jack on a premium phone, actually having a headphone jack and memory card expansion on a premium phone, cough, cough, S21, gonna get a cranky review. That's a compelling differentiator in the world of premium phones these days. But they couldn't have been bothered to try plugging in some headphones. They couldn't even do that. And the rest of the review has these types of incorrect assumptions built into it. One of the other ones, Ken brings up, maybe you could probably buy this phone at a subsidized price. Where? No carrier is carrying the Xperia 5 Mark II, so there are no subsidies in that regard. I mean, there have been some sales on Xperia phones. Xperia phones often come bundled with really nice Bluetooth headphones, but it takes a minute of using Bing to determine Ken's assumption of the Sony smartphone market and subsidies is grossly incorrect. And we wrap up this video with the two of them contemplating what Sony's doing in the market, where I want to get this quote here. This is from Austin. To me, it feels like the Xperia line exists because they still sell some of them in markets such as Japan, and it's probably still enough that if they're not breaking even, just losing a little bit of money and like, okay, cool, we have a little foothold in this space. Why guess? Sony just published their quarterly financials. Why guess? It takes a minute of searching just to pull up the information that over the last fiscal quarter, Sony sold fewer handsets than the year before, but managed comparable profits, which means Sony is likely, increasing the profit margin on every sale that they make. For a company like Sony, as long as that division's not in the red, making the same money on fewer units sold, eking out just a little bit more profit, that's cool. They're good. They're in good shape. The Sony fundamentals are in decent shape. And it seems that this tactic of tying the Xperia and positioning the Xperia phone as a companion to the Alpha camera series is one that's starting to build some co-brand recognition. I really wish Sony would do more with the PlayStation brand, but Sony Alpha plus Sony Xperia is a very strong strategic partnership internal to Sony. It took me a minute. They couldn't have been arsed to Google Sony financials. They had no cheat sheet on the different specs. They couldn't remember the IP rating of the Xperia 5 Mark II. It's IP something, I guess. It's some degree of water resistance. Why not? I don't get it. But the main reason why I wanted to follow up with this on the podcast is one piece that I felt was moving beyond lazy. Oh, and also there was the funny bit where Ken starts talking trash about LG. Well, LG, I used to tag LG for this too, but now they're doing wacky things with the Wing. Because I'm positive that their opinion of LG products has not changed since Austin started hosting LG product reveals, right? This is a screen grab that they actually show in their video where Austin is hosting an LG keynote. So I'm sure that in the past, all of those LG criticisms were just totally warranted. But now that we've got a different kind of relationship direct with that manufacturer, our opinions have just evolved with these amazing new wacky phones. Look, this is wacky. There's a novelty to a phone with a hinge. So now LG's doing it right. Perish the thought that this is influencing their commentary on these different devices. But anyway, so we're going through, this is actually taking it back up to the beginning of their video. Austin makes a note of saying how incredibly tall the Xperia 5 Mark II is. So Ken starts with, oh, I really like the feel in the hand, the physical feel, which is the most useless piece of gadget reviewer commentary you can really have. Austin, like, yeah, it's really well built, but it's incredibly tall. And then Ken sort of mimes this, like, well, it's just so hard when you're holding the phone. You've got to reach up to, like, get the notification shade, which you don't if you're on your home screen. But again, that would mean you would have to have had used the product. What bothers me, though, they do have a piece of B-roll to demonstrate how tall the Xperia 5 Mark II is. Remember, Austin describes this as being incredibly tall. This is beyond the norm. 21:9 aspect ratio. No other phones are made this way except for every other phone. The iPhone is 19.5:9. Samsungs are usually somewhere in 20:9. LGs are 20.5:9. OnePluses also. I mean, if you can show me the practical differences between 21:9 and 20.5:9 as some kind of beyond the pale deal breaker of usage, I got a bridge to sell you next. So, Austin describes this as incredibly tall, and a piece of B-roll pops up. Well, look at this. Doesn't this just look... Oh, wait, let me shrink this so it shows up better. Right there. So here's the piece of B-roll that Austin shows in, or I should say shows in their video. I mean, just look at this. This is an Xperia 5 Mark II next to an iPhone. Doesn't that just look incredibly tall? I mean, that's just huge. Look at that. Look at that difference. It's like a whole sixth of a screen taller than the little iPhone. So when I first watched this, I didn't really grok what they'd just done. But I did see they've got the Xperia 5 monolith dead on to the camera, and the Xperia is sort of tilted and angled off, leaning against the Xperia, so it looks like it's skinnier and shorter. But here's the problem. Here's where things are a little bit uglier than just a lazy review here. I'm going to take another drink of water, and then I have to turn around and get a mug. The Xperia 5 Mark II is not a big phone. It is a little taller, but it's not big. So when we compare against an iPhone, if this were an iPhone 12, I think it would actually be much, much closer to the top bezel of the phone. I'm pretty sure that while Austin was saying the Xperia 5 is incredibly tall, they showed us a picture, they showed us B-roll of an Xperia 5 Mark II next to an iPhone 12 mini. I'm almost positive that is an iPhone mini. So, I tweeted this. It was actually the second place finisher on Our Glowing Rectangles. And hold on, I don't know why I didn't think of doing this when I was actually writing the article. Maybe it's because I have just a little bit of journalistic integrity. I don't have an Xperia 5 Mark II. I don't have an iPhone 12 mini. I can't show you the size difference between those two phones, right? I can kind of speculate, and I pulled up the Phone Arena size comparison charts. But what I do have is an Xperia 5, not the Mark II, just the Xperia 5. And I've got an iPhone SE. The iPhone SE is just a hair taller than the iPhone 12 mini. So the iPhone 12 mini kind of lines up just around the earpiece speaker on the iPhone SE. That's how you kind of shrink that phone size down. So one more time, we're going to take a look at their picture there. So there's the Xperia 5 and the iPhone 12 mini. And now here is the Xperia 5 and the iPhone SE. And wouldn't you know it, the iPhone SE is lining up really close to where we see that photo. And this is where stuff gets scummy. Because if you had showed an Xperia 5 next to an iPhone 12, the difference would not have been that extreme. We would be talking the 4-head bezel worth of difference between an iPhone 12 and the Xperia 5. But we needed to make this look extreme. And there are so many fewer Sony owners out there. Let's play with this comparison. Someone who has a regular sized iPhone would look at this and think, well, that's ridiculous. Who would want to use a phone that much taller than my regular iPhone? So now we're getting into a territory that I feel is intellectually dishonest. You label those. Why would you ever compare the size difference on a phone with a 6.1 inch diagonal against a phone with a 5.4 inch diagonal and not label why you were comparing completely different tiers of product? Oh man, this Galaxy S21 is just like so tiny compared to like a Lenovo phablet. Tech reviewers should never do that. If you're going to have any reputation, any credibility, it's stuff like this that shows how you're gaming your commentary to help certain players win. This entire 15-minute video was designed to help Samsung and Apple win against the Xperia 5 Mark II. There was no commentary of substance as to what the Xperia 5 was good at, where it could improve. The only criticisms were things that you could have read off of a spec sheet. All of their market and industry analysis was completely wrong. They guessed completely wrong when it came to Sony distribution, Sony profits, carrier relationships, any potential subsidies. They were wrong about camera performance and what the features of the camera were. They mentioned nothing about the supporting feature set like the headphone jack or the memory card slot or the power management features or the higher refresh rate display. None of this was detailed. None of this was examined, which leads me to conclude that they did not do their job. They did not use the product, and they were incapable of looking up the information to flesh out their commentary. They sat down, they turned on a camera, they kind of held the phone for a couple minutes, they shot 2 awful photos from the main camera sensor, and then declared some type of loss for why Sony they just don't care. If these phones were good enough, they'd be good enough, but they're not good enough. They need to be gooder. And they couldn't even accomplish that well. So, I am not going to turn my channel into a drama channel. I'm not going to make this a regular thing where I go out looking for reviews to pan. I can't stomach the idea of my existence as like the person who critiques and reviews, because the main thing that I want to get at is using fun tech. I'm already having enough of my own existential crisis and fighting YouTube algorithms. I don't need to pile on more toxicity in my daily tech sphere. So it can't be me. And I would also kind of caution anyone who's looking at like, I'm going to be the arbiter of truth. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to hold these tech reviewers accountable. Basically, you're going to descend down into the drama depths, and it's salacious content. It's going to get you views. You will be successful. But you got to look at all of the other drama commentators out there and then make that community even smaller. So it's not like drama on lifestyle YouTube channels that are getting hundreds of millions of views per month. This is like drama on tech, and tech is already a tiny little pocket niche of a community. It can't be me. I would recommend against it being you. But if we as a community can't examine some of these trends in our circles, and if we can't call out the trends that are most concerning to us,
I do this often generally. You know, my reviews have that snarky edge of this is why I don't like how the commentary on this product has been conducted in other reviews that I've watched. And I try to call out some of the broader um, claims that are made in some of these reviews. This one felt like an egregious misstep. Like every single piece and every single part of it was ill informed or incorrect or just lazy. And it became something that I felt like, okay, this one I need to highlight. I had friends, and like I said, in my DM saying like, hey, you need to make this a proper response video. And like, no, I don't. And I don't want to. Spending 25 minutes on this on a podcast is about as much as I've really got room to stomach. I'm going to get my last mug of water here from my third Mega Pickle mug. Merch available. That's not a reviewer trope, is it? And from Fat Produce, almost all of the comments in Austin's video are universally negative as the cherry on top. And that's fine. But again, YouTube is going to weight engagement, right? So, going to Austin's channel and saying you did a bad thing is going to get him a view. It's going to get him a comment. It's going to show that there's interaction happening on the YouTube algorithm. And that video, I think, is on track now to break like 70,000 views. I mean, that's going to best many of my Xperia videos. He's going to make ad revenue off of that. It helps his sponsor metrics. His sponsorships are all going to look at those numbers and say like, hey, he's doing a great job. He profits from all of that behavior. Me pointing this out improves his marketability because it creates conflict and it creates drama, and YouTube feeds on that, which is why I really kind of didn't want to call him out specifically in the first place. I don't want to reward this behavior by calling it out. But I feel like those of us who take these types of we take our hobbies seriously. I feel like those of us in this camp where we enjoy this kind of tech and we enjoy the conversations around this kind of tech, like, it's a reinforcing data point to say we should demand a little bit more. We should expect a little bit more. If someone has unique access to a product, why are we okay with just spec reading, off the side of the box? Pretty B-roll is fine. It's entertaining, but does that really complete the conversation around these products? Are we gleaning any insight from their commentary that we couldn't have just guessed at by looking at a press release? And if we can't overcome those trends, then we're not even valuable to our own community, let alone outsiders. Like, we're not even entertaining for us, right? We're just more noise to feed the maw of chewed up content on YouTube. That's also why I kind of want to get away from here's my 24 hours and my first impressions, and here's the unboxing, and here's my 48-hour review, and here's my 1-week follow-up, and here's my what you didn't know about this product explained. And like, it's good to kind of look at our tropes. It's good to kind of look at some bad habits and take a step back and say we could do anything else, which is what I'm trying to accomplish. So what I would say is try to help those and support those that you think do better. Try to help promote and share the content that you think overcomes some of this algorithmically reinforced laziness. And try and also unplug from the talking heads in our communities that rant and get cranky and tell you what you should think and how to think and what to do and what's popular and what they like and bias and preferences, and just be there for your family and friends. If someone were to stumble from outside our community into some of these tech reviews, they'd get a very warped perspective on what's good and what's not good. And I don't feel that's reflective of the real world consumer experience anymore. I think we're so far off the pulse, we can't even see what the average consumer experience looks like, even though we're making these reviews under the shield of protecting those average consumers. That's not who we are anymore. So that's enough. That's all I got to say about that. Gotta take another drink of water here. Gary the Fireman, what if we watch for a minute and stop? Don't. It's just going to annoy you. And McCorcoran, best thing you can do is support small independent creators that don't do this, although they're hard to find because new YouTube creators model their behavior after people like Austin. Again, I would also be one of the first to say, if you're looking at creating a successful and profitable YouTube channel, you probably don't want to make YouTube content the way I do. So that's why I think initiatives and community-based support for things like glowing rectangles has become so precious to me. Like, I'm finding creators and I'm finding reviewers and I'm finding commentators that I would not have found thanks to YouTube. And they're a lot more fun to engage with. And some of them are big channels. Like, some of them are really large. It's not just like, oh, this person has 50 subscribers in a Sharpay. You know, like, we can be broader and embrace more aspects of our community out there. So, folks, just be kind to yourselves. You know, this was an acidic situation for me to cover. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy the video. I had that kind of heartburny feeling while I was writing up my responses to all of their points. I didn't want to be a part of this conversation. I mean, like, if I'm upset with Austin Evans for anything, it's that this review was so poor. It motivated me to engage in a direct confrontation of a terrible review that left me feeling heartburny for an afternoon. And what did we win? What did we get? Did anything change? Is anything better? And I don't know that it is. So why? You know, I understand a certain amount of apathy on this kind of stuff. Because all that effort, all of that energy, all of that toxic bubbling, all of that stomach acid, for what? I don't know. I really don't. So, be kind to yourselves. There's a sick, visceral thrill that we get out of fighting on the internet. Is it worth it? Maybe. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes we got to, but all the time, as like the backbone of what passes for commentary, nah, probably not. And on that note, this is where I want to flip it. I have tons of stuff coming out soon. I like I said, I'm going to be getting a little acerbic talking about the Galaxy S21, but I think I've got some good evidence to back up my feelers. Not like, well, I mean, how do you even say the name? Is it Galaxy S21? It's like a Final Fantasy title. So be on the lookout for a lot of commentary. I'm cooking on a bunch of, you know, like you kind of get like, I'm front loading using these products and then you kind of get backlogged and then it's just like a dam breaks and all of these videos just kind of start pouring out. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm ready for that dam break. And then from there, check out some of the commentary and reviews over on reviews.org. I'm going to be supplying them with a couple more videos on internet service providers, broadband, and infrastructure. I'm hoping to be doing, that'll be next month though. There's going to be another Newegg live stream coming up, but that's a couple weeks out. And then, that's right, TK. TK Bay and I, the best of our week, Thursday night, we're going to be doing another live stream, probably following up on some of my Galaxy S21 thoughts and then some of the other things that TK and I have been kind of working on, just chatting for our various communities and all of our tech buddies. That's on a new channel, so make sure you subscribe to that channel for the good notifications and the live streaming and all the whatnot there. And I think you'll have a good time. We have a lot of fun making them, so I hope you have a lot of fun listening to them. So I want you all to have an amazing week with your technology. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your tech. And I want to see everyone back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be well, be good to yourself, and take care. It's still crazy out there. It's still wild. And I want to see you back. I love you all.